Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Dugout, episode 66. Another entertaining weekend of Scottish Premiership action. Celtic and Rangers on and off the pitch. The demise continues as Derek McInnes returns to his old stomping ground with 3 points and 3 goals and a clean sheet to boot as Hearts extend their league at the top of the Scottish Premiership. We've also got Rangers managerial talk to discuss. There's been a lot that's changed since last week, and of course, I'm joined by my usual co-host Alexander Cruikshanks to discuss everything. How are you doing, Alex?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. It was definitely an unexpected weekend of Scottish football. I'm more excited to be talking about that than the most exhausting managerial search of all time. And also, as well, for anyone wondering why I've got a hat on, I'm a bit cold. so, yeah. But I'm more excited to talk about the weekend's fixtures because there were some big results in there for many teams, most of all the Jambos. But uh, of course, we do need to talk about the Rangers situation as well, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, we'll get on to that later in the episode, but I think there isn't anywhere else to start than Rugby Park. Of course, Derek McInnes and Stuart Finlay, the former Kilmarnock player and manager, and they went there, and I don't think many people thought it would be a 3-0 win, but they absolutely trounced Kilmarnock on the evening and were the excellent team and deserved to win by possibly more. I watched it and I thought Hearts were absolutely brilliant. Braga was excellent. I think Cammy Devlin got man of the match. He was excellent also. And yeah, that was a real statement win because I think the last few wins have been a sort of late winners, of course, in the derby, coming from behind on a few occasions. But they went to one of the most difficult places in the country. And the Kilmarnock, of course, come into the game third place, only losing one Premiership game, and that was a late dodgy penalty against Celtic. So it shows that Kilmarnock are not an easy team to beat this season. Hearts have went up there and beat them pretty comfortably, and I don't think you could say that any other team in the league could do that right now. And I think that shows why Hearts deserve the lead at the top of the table. And I think we do need to start considering them as real title favourites, don't we, Alex?
Yeah, definitely. That's like you said, Ethan, in your little monologue there. It was a statement, a real statement from Hearts because a lot of people leading into this game and the following game said if they can win both these, it's you'll consider them real title challengers and see the way just in the fashion that they won. Um, I think it's already cemented them, and because of the other result, I think they're up there. Obviously, they've got a big game coming up this week, but yeah, that's just huge, and they don't look like they can be stopped, and they can win in all different ways. Like you said, Ethan, they can win late, they can come from behind, or they can go to a hostile environment. Obviously, their current manager going there with a lot of fans hating him at Rugby Park, and yeah, they proved that they're up there and they shut everyone up with a massive victory. And I wasn't expecting it either. I thought it would be tight. I thought they would get the win, but I thought it would be difficult for them, but they didn't. It wasn't difficult for them, and they got a convincing victory, and now they sit five clear at the top of the table.
Yeah, and you don't see that lead sort of shrinking either. Of course, they play possibly still their biggest test. I think that's to be debated next weekend on Sunday when they host the champions Celtic, and we'll obviously get onto their weekend's disappointment as well. But no, as you said, Derek McInnes going back to a place that obviously he's not everyone's favourite there with how it finished, how he left, and you seen that when he walked out on the pitch, he got not a nasty reception, but not as maybe nice as he could have done. But Hearts dealt with business excellently. They went about the game in the best way they could. 3-0. I think if anyone goes to Rugby Park and wins 3-0, if Celtic and Rangers of the past go to Rugby Park and win 3-0, that's an excellent result. So I think Hearts, they deserve their plaudits, and I think people are maybe a little bit scared to say that Hearts are in the title race or title favourites, but there is no sign of any other team in this league coming close to Hearts at the moment. And looking ahead to next week, I'll give my thoughts on it maybe later in the episode. But just going through the goals of the game, Craig Halkett opened the scoring, back-to-back goals for him. Obviously, got the winner in the Edinburgh Derby before the international break. Good header from him. Harry Milne involved as well, he's been excellent this season and deployed in different areas by his manager. And then a second half Claudio Braga double. The second goal, I believe, was especially excellent when he touched it round the Eddie Beach, I believe it was, the Kilmarnock sort of step-in goalkeeper. And Alexandros Kizridis with another assist. I believe he tops that metric in the Scottish Premiership. So, yeah, Hearts were excellent and they could have scored even more in that second half. They were unbelievable. Really playing with confidence. You've seen them popping about, flicking it off to each other, just played with swagger. And yeah, Kilmarnock couldn't get near them. And as you said, I really didn't expect that. I thought Hearts would win the game, possibly, yes, but thought it would maybe be a tight 2-1 or a 1-0 because Kilmarnock had been on a good run themselves too. Massive wins beforehand, their first of the season in the league against two fellow top six opposition. But yeah, Hearts just seem unstoppable at the moment, and it's difficult to see any team causing them real problems.
Yeah, definitely. And it is difficult to see any team causing real problems. And you mentioned some of the names there. Obviously, after the weekend now, Claudio Braga's the joint top scorer in the Premiership now. Kizritis, you're absolutely right. He's joint top with assists. A player I'm sure we'll get onto when we talk about the Celtic game is up there with him. And Cameron Congreve, who's really impressed a lot of people this season. But yeah, they've recruited so we talk about it a lot, but they've recruited so well, and they've got players on that bench who I think are yet to get going, but are good as a part of the squad right now. They've done it just enough where they've got guys who have come in, made an instant impact. They've got guys who are already there and have stepped up their game. The likes of Shankland, who had a poor season last season. The likes of Cammy Devlin, who's always been good, but's got to a different level this season. Craig Halkett is playing out of his skin. Has added a bit of goals to his game recently as well. And yeah, I don't really know what else to say. I think Hearts, I'm still a wee bit hesitant, but if they get a draw against Celtic next week, I think they're serious title contenders.
Yeah, I think it's going to go one of two ways next week. Well, it could go the way that you've just mentioned, but if Celtic roll up to Tynecastle and win, which I'll just give my thoughts, I don't see that happening at the moment with how Celtic have been playing and how Hearts have been playing, but you never know. Football is a funny game. If Hearts win, then I think 8 points is a massive gap, especially for this Hearts team that we've not seen any signs of slowing down. And this does feel more real than last season. I think everyone's accepted that, and that's also it's taken away from the where Hearts are compared to where Aberdeen were last season. But you've also got to consider what the opposition are doing, and Celtic are an absolute shadow of themselves. So I'll get on to the stats surrounding them in
I've
recent times. But
I've got a wee stat about goal scoring for both of the teams. Hearts have scored 11 in their last five. Celtic have scored four.
yeah, and that sums it up. In the league table, Hearts have scored the most by quite a considerable distance, five more than any other team. They've got the second best defence in the league, narrowly a goal behind Celtic, although that could obviously flip next week. And 8 points is massive. And I think last season and people will maybe say, well, Aberdeen were 9 points ahead of Rangers at one point last season, and look what happened there. But this Hearts team's got a better squad. It's got better squad depth. It's got a manager who, and no disrespect to Jim
Yeah,
Kelly, knows the league
sorry,
better.
and as we've mentioned before in previous podcasts, and they're actually clearly leading the league. They're leading the league in almost every single metric in terms of individual performances and team performances, except from their defensive record, which is only one goal separates them and Celtic. They're leading it in every possible kind of category, which is so much more different. Sorry to jump all over you, Ethan, but I thought I'd
No,
just
no, not at all.
go in there and say that they are. they're leading it in every possible sense of the word, being on top. And like you said, Ethan, I don't see them slowing down.
No, you can, and you just need to look at the league table. It looks quite strange at the moment because they're double or more than double with the points tally of every team in the league apart from Celtic. Even Hibs, who are a really solid team is, and a really good team at times, as we've seen at the weekend, and even your Kilmarnock, your Dundee United, Rangers, obviously, we know the case with them. Motherwell down in 10th somehow. And they've started the season so in such a brilliant way that it is hard to see them slowing down. Obviously, you do expect when the fixture congestion and stuff like that, do they have the players to come in and deal with that? And I think they do. Obviously, they don't have as strong a squad on paper as financially wise, certainly as a Celtic or even a Rangers, I would say, still at this point. But you look at some of the players that didn't even get off the bench at the weekend. You've got Kyrgiota, who came off the bench and got that put in that brilliant ball at Tynecastle last time out against Hibs for the winner. You've got uh, Pierre-Landry Cabore, who I believe scored a hat-trick for Burkina Faso on international duty. Yes, he did. Um, so they've got excellent players just waiting in the wings that aren't even being used yet. And Derek McInnes has got a very, I think I've said it a few times, he's got a very versatile squad there that he can switch about whenever he needs to. And
You know,
I think they'll
they've
be,
got guys on the injury list that could be due to come back soon, like Neuenhoff, their brand new record signing, Agu, who's barely got involved. Kent as well, Frankie Kent. We forgot about him, one of an integral sort of defender and their teams. So you know they've got guys ready to come back from the injury list.
yeah, it's that as well. When you have your record signing, sort of waiting to get into the real. I know he's played, but he's not really got up to speed yet. And when he does, and hopefully he does, then he'll be another great addition to Hearts. And it shows the luxury they're in at this point. Looking at the other side of it for Kilmarnock, I'd say, sobering evening for them. They came into this game with a lot of confidence, and rightfully so, with how they'd been playing recently. They were obviously, as a reference to, unlucky not to take something from the game at home to Celtic. They got their League Cup revenge against St Mirren in the league, and they beat Dundee United at Tannadice, which is two results not to be sniffed at. And then obviously they welcome back Derek McInnes, not very welcoming fashion, you would say, and they would have hoped to end Hearts' streak and sort of send them to a place Aberdeen were last season, because obviously Derek McInnes isn't a fan favourite at Kilmarnock anymore. But yeah, it was a humbling evening, and they'll need to go back to the drawing board. Stuart Kettlewell started the season very well. I think they will get back up to where they were, and maybe not third place, but I still think Kilmarnock will be battling for that top six as well. A lot of teams in that league, we've seen a lot of shuffling recently, but yeah, they just never really got into the game on Saturday, and yeah, it's a massive game next for Kilmarnock, because this is the games that sort of make or break your teams. And I know it's at Ibrox, which makes it even bigger game. Could be a new manager in charge as well. So yeah, that'll be a massive game for Stuart Kettlewell to see where his players are really at, and if they can go there and get a positive result, a draw at Ibrox, no matter how Rangers have been playing. A draw for most teams in the Premiership's been a good result still against Rangers this season. Then I think he'll see that his players are made of hard stuff, you could say, and that they are ready to bounce back and fight when it gets difficult against difficult results, because it is, I think, one of the most difficult things for a player when you're on such a high like Kilmarnock were after those two wins, and then you have confidence to get a really good result, and in your own backyard you're beat pretty easily by your old boss as well. So they wouldn't have been feeling too great on Saturday night, but I think Kilmarnock will bounce back and they'll be in and around those top six positions.
Yeah, I don't think Kelly fans should be too worried. You've come up against what is starting to become clearly the best team in the league. So don't don't get too concerned. Kilmarnock have been excellent, and it will be a difficult game next week against Rangers. You don't know what Rangers are going to come up against. You don't know if there'll be a new manager in the door yet. That might add something to the game, but they should, based on how they've been played, not how they've been played, how they've been playing. They should go in with confidence, and the team should try not to worry about this result too much, because I think as the season goes on, we'll see Hearts batter a few more teams and potentially build on their lead at the top, and we might even see them with a trophy. I know that's quite far away, but we might even see Hearts with the league trophy at the end of the season. But Kilmarnock shouldn't be too worried, and they should go into this next game with confidence, because on the overall sort of overlook of the season, you can say they've been better than Rangers have been.
Yeah, that would be fair to say. And the thing is, with any football, but Scottish football especially, nothing's a certain in this league. And you take the game at Dens Park yesterday as perfect example. The on paper league favourites v the on paper favourites for 12th place, you could say. I think Dundee fans would take that as a compliment as to how they've started the season. And I've given my thoughts and maybe a humble pie with what I've said about.
I told you Presley Ball was top tier. I knew it from the moment they played Rangers. They were a good side.
No, I still do think. I know it's crazy to say, and Dundee were excellent yesterday against Celtic and thoroughly deserved a win. But I do still think Dundee will be down there. But take nothing away from them. They were absolutely excellent yesterday and deserved everything they got. And Celtic, on the other hand, were absolutely terrible and deserved everything they got, which was nothing from the game. To fall 5 points behind Hearts now, possibly eight by the end of next weekend's games, and yeah, really concerning for them. Obviously, the game started with another protest from the Celtic fans throwing balls and oranges and everything else onto the pitch into Kasper Schmeichel's goal, which I think him and the other Celtic players were really frustrated with. And you've seen Kasper Schmeichel sort of signalling to players, come on, we are just trying to play our football here. But obviously, protests are protests. And yeah, the Celtic fans still obviously try to get that message across. And I think, but I think everyone needs to take responsibility for a result like this, because regardless of who the board have recruited and whatever else, Celtic still have a good enough manager, a good enough squad to go to Dens Park and win. And obviously they didn't, and that's all credit to Stephen Presley, as you said, because Dundee were excellent. They didn't have many chances. They had to sit in a lot, as you do against Celtic. But for Celtic, it was a lot of having the ball without doing much with it, as we've seen this season. Dundee took their chances when they came their way excellently and deserved a massive win. And now they're on 9 points and they're only 2 points off third. So you never know. And I've doubted Dundee. And I still do think they're one of the weakest teams in the league on paper, but it's credit to Stephen Presley and the players that they've not sort of what could you say, listened to the people like me who are talking down on them, that they've decided, we can play and we can beat anyone in this league on our day, and they've shown that yesterday against the champions, and of course, as you mentioned, that great result at Ibrox as well. So yeah, an excellent result for Dundee, but really, really concerning for Celtic.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I'm just looking at the stats here, and Celtic finished with 82% possession, 23 shots, 2.51 expected goals. Dundee with 1.23, but I think that's when stats don't tell you the whole story, because for me, Celtic never really looked like threatening that much. They had the opportunities, but it looked disjointed again. Ethan, it looked slow. It looked like they didn't have a clear sort of plan either. We've spoken about over the years how much, you come up against Celtic and there's a fear there. And Rangers have been trying to get that back for a while, and they've failed. And Celtic have been the team you come up against and you fear. If you look at them in recent weeks, I think teams are starting to clock on and go, wait a minute here. These guys are, they're human. We can take something from them. And Dundee were excellent. And I spoke about him earlier in the show, mentioned him. I just want to highlight Cameron Congreve will not be at Dundee for very long. He
Well,
is.
I think he's on loan. He's on loan, but I
Is he
get what
on
you mean.
loan? I thought they got him permanently.
I thought he was on loan from Swansea.
I thought he was not one of the loan boys. Let me check.
It says on loan here, but I might be wrong. Anyway,
Oh, he is on loan. My mistake. My
No,
mistake.
no, I'll talk over the. I was just going to say, talk through the goals, and the other highlights of the game. As you said, Celtic huffed and puffed with a lot of possession, as they've done in a lot of games this season. They didn't create too much. I think they still had enough to probably win the game, but the quality Celtic maybe have in those forward positions, and I think you were going to well, you made the stat earlier about how many goals Celtic have scored, and I think that's one of the problems is that they're struggling to score goals. And I think that the stat was a few weeks ago that they'd scored half the goals they had by this point last season. I don't imagine that that's changed because obviously they've not scored many in the few games after that. And I think I was looking and they lost two games in 2024, which was a really impressive stat considering they played obviously in the Champions League. But in 2025, I think they've lost 10 or 11 games, which shows how far away Celtic are from where they were last campaign and last year. Of course, I think people were very unhappy with that day at Hampden when Aberdeen obviously won on penalties to lift the Scottish Cup. But Celtic were a couple kicks away from a treble. Now, I think Celtic would take one trophy, and that being the league, never mind a treble. So yeah, it shows where they've got to at this stage, and it is really worrying because you don't see any signs of progress. But of course, you've got to give a lot of credit to Dundee to, well, I'll say one well taken goal, one a bit fortunate, but as you said, a great ball by Cameron Congreve for the first goal, an excellent header from Clark Robertson, and he knew exactly what he wanted to do. It headed it right into the corner. Casper Schmeichel had no chance with that one in 18 minutes, and you thought, well, this is going to be a long game for Celtic to get back into. And then right at the end of the first half, the best time to score in football, some people say, um, Dundee doubled their lead. Cameron Congreve turns Celtic's possible player of the season so far inside out, Liam Scales, and then crosses. A little bit fortunate, I think. I can't remember what Dundee player it was in the middle. I think it might have been Joe Wesley, that got a little bit of a touch on it, but he couldn't quite help it towards goal, and then hits off Cameron Carter-Vickers and goes in for 2-0. And the US central defenders scored own goals in back-to-back
Have you,
seasons at Dens Park, which is a
have you
funny
seen the
start.
posts from the Dundee Instagram? The
No, I haven't.
photographers like rage baiting.
No.
It's so funny. So when Wesley's running away celebrating, he's managed to get Scales. I can't quite tell who the other one is, lying on the ground. And Wesley like stepping over him. And then there's another one of like a couple of Dundee players like celebrating while McCowan and Carter Vickers are whining to the referee. So the photographers were doing a lot of rage baiting.
Yeah, I do remember that at the end of the match. I think it was it Hamilton? I think it was Ethan Hamilton, who was excellent as well, who won a foul and celebrated it like a goal in the final stages when Dundee could see that finish line, because especially in the second half they were under a lot of pressure possession wise. I think Celtic started the first maybe 5-10 minutes of the second half with 90+% possession, which shows how much they had without really doing too much with it. Brendan Rodgers made two big changes at half time. He took off Anthony Ralston, took off Hyun Jun Yang, brought on Johnny Kenny and James Forrest, switched to that sort of back three stroke five that we've seen, probably more a back three with how much possession Celtic had, that we've seen switch to against Braga in the Europa League. And it didn't. It worked better. Celtic definitely were better in the second half, I would say, but they still didn't really create enough to deserve to win the game and left themselves too much to do. They had chances, as I said. Kelechi and Nacho had a few decent ones to find the net. They could have had a penalty, but it had. I think it was Hamilton again. Or it was Digby actually. It was that it hit his face rather than his hands, which were outstretched, so he got a little bit fortunate there. There was a brilliant clearance off the line by, I can't remember who it was. I think it might have been Luke Graham. It was a real Hattati shot that was certainly going in. John McCracken had no chance of it.
I quite like Luke Graham as well this season. There was a lot there was a lot of talk in the media at the start, and him saying he was ready to sort of take the next step and sort of play regular senior football, and he's impressed me, and I think he's been smashing it for the Scotland 21s as well. So fair play to him.
Yeah, and if it was him, I think it was. It was a excellent block. I don't know if he knew too much about it, but it was just kind of it hit off his backside to get it out of the goal and round the post, which was a crucial time because if Celtic get that goal, you know what it's like when you play against teams that are putting you under pressure like that. When they get one goal, they get their tails up and then they get back into the game. But Celtic never got that. Another player that I picked out that I thought was absolutely excellent for Dundee was Dre Wright. I thought he was absolutely excellent on that right wing back role. He kept Sebastian Tenecti really quiet, which obviously we've seen has been difficult for pretty much everyone he's went up against this season. So credit to him, a really nice pickup from St Johnstone, and of course he's got victories over Celtic in back-to-back seasons because Celtic, of course, lost at McDermott Park last season to the relegated side, and I'm not going to say that's going to be the case again because obviously there's a long season to go, and Dundee have still they've got a lot of points compared to the rest of the league. They're sitting in an average position, so maybe Stephen Presley can work his magic and get them possibly even top six. You never know, but I think Dundee's priority will still be to stay in that league. But results like this and performances like this will give them confidence that can beat anybody in the league. As I said, for Celtic, really concerning. I think if you start any match with Anthony Ralston at right back and Yang at right wing, then and that's your first choice options at this stage, I think that probably shows maybe where Celtic are in terms of their squad. And obviously, Alistair Johnston, as we mentioned in the last episode, is back in training and he'll be back probably in a few weeks, I think. But yeah, Celtic didn't address the problem at right wing when they sold Nicholas Kuhn, and that's coming back to bite them now because they've not got anyone who can go over there and play to an efficient manner. Of course, Dyson Maeda was out as well with that injury. Paulo Bernardo, I believe, missed through illness. You've obviously got Jota out as well. But at the end of the day, a few injuries shouldn't stop Celtic from going to Dens Park and picking up 3 points. And if Celtic want to be crowned champions again, then this is the things they'll need to start doing because Hearts are doing it and they're doing it in really impressive fashion. So really concerning for Celtic. Brendan Rodgers under a lot of pressure. I'll have to get up the quote he said after the match. I think you've probably seen it. Was absolutely excellent. So I'll just get it up here.
I've actually not seen this, so I'm quite
All
eager.
right, okay. I'll get it up for you. Let's see. Brendan Rodgers said, "There's no way you go into a race with keys to a Honda Civic and say I want you to drive it like a Ferrari. It's not going to happen." So I
Oh,
believe that's
going
I believe
after
that's
the board, going after the players. He's going after them all. He's no prisoners. One thing I saw
yeah.
as well, though, that despite all the protests, and Dermot Desmond said he's not making any changes to the Celtic hierarchy. So
I think the it's going to be a really interesting season for Celtic because I think Brendan Rodgers' relationship with the board or the hierarchy is gone. I don't think anyone can dispute that. I don't think there is a coherent operation um, between them, and it's always difficult when you're trying to run a football club and the manager's not got the best interests of the board and the board haven't got the best interests of the manager. And Celtic will just need to make it to January, I think, in a position where they're still in touch and distance of Hearts because they need a right winger. There's no getting away from that. They can't be playing Yang and Forrest as their first choice. And obviously, you can put Dyson Maid out there. You can put Michel Ange Balikwisha, who was really solid when he came on at the weekend, had a chance that hit the bar. But yeah, Celtic need to improve and they need to improve quick because Hearts could leave them behind. Moving across the city, well, both cities actually, in a way, because of course it was both Dundee sides against both sides of the Old Firm this weekend, and two good results for the Dundee sides. also at Ibrox. Dundee United picked up a point, and
Yeah,
I don't really.
the city of discovery, discovering the old firm's rubbish. Uh,
Yeah, yeah, that's a good one. That's a good line, definitely. And like Celtic, on and off the pitch, turmoils continued at Ibrox, and yeah, it wasn't a great result. Although the performance was a lot better, especially in the opening hour.
yeah, for about 60 minutes, Rangers actually looked like a competent football team. Telo Asgard, showing for the first time this season what Rangers bottom for. A bit of individuality, a really nice finish from him. He had a few chances like that. He looked freer, like he was kind of enjoying himself. My dad actually mentioned this to me. He said, "Do you think Stephen Smith has just said to the players, what do you want to do? What do you and tried to just get them enjoying themselves again. Obviously, the result didn't go the same way because after that 60 minutes, Rangers went back to Martin Ball, it seemed. Really flat, really poor. They lost control of the game. Dundee United got back in it. And then they went ahead. Two really nice strikes, especially Craig Sibbald's stunning finish from him. And then Rangers equalise, a nice goal from James Tavernier to make it two each. But, the really poor sort of results continue. This 6 draws in the Scottish Premiership now for Rangers. I think I'll need to double check it. I think that might be more or close to their tally last season for draws. Um, if you're clutching at straws, you could say the silver lining is it's still only one league defeat, but yeah, it's really, really poor. Again, not getting the result at Ibrox, and especially going ahead and then not managing to get the result in the end was really poor from Rangers. I'm just seeing if I can get this from. Oh, last season Rangers had 9 draws. So we're barely into the season. They're pretty close. 2 seasons ago, Rangers had 4 draws. So it's not.
A steady increase.
Yeah, so it's not great. And you know, really poor result. A good result for Dundee United. They remain in fourth. Although they hung on, to be fair, because Rangers could have been more in front going into the second half, but they weren't. And then they managed to turn it around. Obviously with the 2 goals. So Rangers sit sixth, 2 points behind Hibs in third, but 8 points behind Celtic. Uh, 13 points behind Hearts.
Yeah, and yeah, I was just gonna run through the goals again quickly. I think you already mentioned them, but not an excellent strike from Taylor Asgard. Takes on, I think, 2 defenders. He goes past, and then you can't get much more top corner than that he did into that right roof of the net. And Rangers were looking really good at that point, as you said. The stats back that up. The eye test, as people say, backed that up, and Dundee United couldn't really get into the game too much. Jim Goodwin makes the sub at half time to take off his main player this season, or his main goal threat, Ivan Dolcek, for Nicolas Moller. And he came on to good effect, you've got to say, with the fact they scored 2 goals in the opening half an hour of that second half. 2 similar goals as well, outside of the box strikes into Jack Butland's bottom right corner, or the bottom left corner, as the Dundee United players were looking at it. Do you think maybe Jack Butland could have done better with them, or just 2 good strikes?
I think the first one maybe, but I don't think you can blame him. Because the defending was shambolic, especially for the first one. You need to get out to Trapanowski there. You can't be letting him. The ball comes
Yeah,
across all the way through. He latches onto it, and the amount of time he has to get past it and set himself is ridiculous. So I don't think you can blame Jack Butland too much.
Yeah, I think that'd be fair to say. And I think John Souttar's sort of probably blocking his vision for both goals, really, and not his fault. It's just the way he's sort of the way he stands and where he stand at that point. And that was one of Traffinoff's first touches because he had just come on at that point. And then Craig Sibbald, as you said, an excellent strike from him on his left foot. And yeah, I really didn't see that coming. Looking at the stats at half time and Rangers being one ahead, I thought they would, and I think many people thought they would sort of kick on and maybe get a second and a third. But
I think
obviously,
that just shows the residual sort of bad mentality and weak weakness, a soft belly, if you want to say, a soft underside to Rangers. That they're there for the taking, and Dundee United very nearly did get the win. Rangers need to get back some of the steel, some of the determination, some of the winning mentality, and hopefully the new manager can instill that. I'm sure we'll get onto that. There's been a lot of breaking news today. It looks like Rangers will have a new manager very soon. But yeah, I think that just going in front and playing really well, and then quickly going back to what we've seen so much this season does show a lack of mentality and sort of residuals from the Martin era.
yeah, I would agree with that. And they should have been able to see that game out comfortably for 3 points. Of course, they did get an equaliser to claim a point at the end. James Tavernier with a nice finish and 4 goals in the Premiership already for him this season in 8 games. Only one of them a penalty. Of course, he did miss that other penalty at Livingston. But yeah, he's been I think that might be similar to Celtic, possibly one of the roots of the problem as well, as there's not really been, apart from maybe Gassama, you could say there's not been anyone consistently chipping in with goals apart from himself and James Tavernier. And when Tavernier's one of your top scorers, he usually is up there, of course, with penalties. But I think even though we know James Tavernier's got an attacking threat, I don't think if he's only scored one penalty, he should be near the top of those scoring charts. But obviously, he is, and he's a massive player for Rangers. And still, sorry, discontent at full time from the Rangers fans. You would expect that with the position they were in and not managing to get the result. But it looks like they have finally found their man to take them forward as the permanent manager. I think last time we spoke, the story was that Steven Gerrard had pulled out of the running, and since then Danny Rohl had apparently pulled out the running, although that seems like now isn't the case, as he is the favourite. He's been pictured at Glasgow Airport. Fabrizio Romano has announced that he is headed to Ibrox pretty much to confirm that he will be the new Rangers manager. And
Chris Jack from the Rangers Review has usually got the inside info about Rangers. Whatever you might think of him, he's said that Danny Rohl is heading to Ibrox to finalise the contract. But I think we should talk about the fiasco, the circus, which has been this. Looked like it was Gerrard, he withdrew. Then looked like it was Rohl, he withdrew. Then it looked like Kevin Muscat, and negotiations fell apart because Rangers wanted him in now. He wanted to finish out the Chinese Super League. And now it looks like it's Danny Rohl again. Although this one seems far more concrete. Obviously, Ethan, you mentioned pictured at Glasgow Airport. Fabrizio Romano's reporting on it. And that's basically the here we go, for lack of a better phrase, on that. So yeah, I'm happy that finally Rangers seem to have had their man, but the way it's been handled has been nothing short of shambolic.
yeah, exactly that. And it has been terribly organised from Kevin Fairwell and Patrick Stewart. You would imagine having something to do with it, as well as maybe someone higher up in the chain. But yeah, I think Rangers fans, like you said, will just be happy to finally get someone in, because it'll feel like an eternity ago now that Russell Martin was sacked, obviously before the international break, and there's been a lot of time to sort of think about who the next manager is going to be. There's obviously been a lot of names thrown about, a lot of people really concretely linked with the role, but it looks like Danny Rohl will be the new manager, and I
Unintended.
think, well, is it?
Unintended.
Yeah, unintended.
Oh, I said
And I
pun
think,
intended.
oh no, I didn't even hear that. But yes, I thought he would be the one from the start. I think I've said that a few times. I didn't think that was always going to be the case when it was linked with Gerrard, and then Muscat looked very nailed on. But yeah, I think Danny Rowe was sort of in line with the 49ers' last appointment, Russell Martin. Of course, they'll hope that it's a lot better than, and I don't think it can really be worse, can it, than Russell Martin? I mean, probably
I
can,
hope
but
not.
I doubt, I very much doubt it. I think Danny Rowe will come in and, you know, there's might, well, there is a lot of pressure on him, of course there is, but there's not a lot of pressure to win the league now, I don't think, because if we're sitting here saying that we think it's even going to be difficult for Celtic to win the league, then how difficult is it going to be for Rangers to win the league? And I think we're
No,
in a position now where,
the league's done for Rangers, but there will be pressure on him to turn around the fortunes in Europe.
yeah,
There will be instant pressure to beat Celtic in the Premier Sports Cup semi final, then go on to beat whoever ends up in there, and there'll be pressure on them to compete for the Scottish Cup.
yeah, and the league form needs to be better as well for a club of Rangers standards. They need to be at the very least getting to third place very soon, and that's obviously very achievable because with the top two of the league is very tight at the moment. And yeah, I think it is one that I can understand why they've went there. He's obviously shown he's a very young manager. He's shown promise at Sheffield Wednesday in a very difficult situation, as we've touched on. He knows Gassama well as well. So yeah, I think it's a decent appointment. But of course, every appointment of every manager ever is associated with a risk. There's going to be a risk, but Rangers need to take risks. They need to get him in quick. Looks like they will have him in for Thursday's trip to Bran and then the return on Sunday at home against Kilmarnock, and that's a perfect opportunity for him to start with 6 points. Not an easy couple of games, but definitely ones that Rangers will be looking to win. And yeah, I think it is good for Rangers that they have looked to have finally got something over the line because it was turning into a bit of a shambles there over the last few days, especially after Kevin Muscat pulled out. But it just begs the question: what have Rangers been doing to not convince these guys to come? And I really don't understand how they didn't get Danny Rowe the first time if they wanted him. Maybe they didn't. Maybe that was all the rubbish. You don't know. But it has been a strange situation that Danny Rowe apparently turned Rangers down, but now he's back again to to come. So yeah, a strange situation. But I think Rangers will be on the up from now, and that's certainly what the fans will hope.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, it will take him a while to sort of implement his. I hate this. I'm getting fed up of this word now, but philosophy, footballing philosophy, is just becoming a thing in the modern game. It'll take him a while to get up and running, but I feel like maybe a game against Bran is an opportunity to get a good win. Although Bran have done quite well in the Europa League so far, and our good friend Ryan Niven thinks Bran is the best side ever. But I feel like it's a good game for him to come into. And in terms of Danny Roll as a coach, obviously Sheffield Wednesday. But if you look at his sort of assistant roles, the German national team, RB Leipzig, Bayern Munich, he's been about and he is a really young coach. But there's a few German coaches like that as well, though, that have I don't know if it's the way it works in Germany. It might be interesting to look into it properly. But there's been a few German coaches that maybe haven't achieved what they have what they want to as a player, or had to leave the game early. They've gone into coaching and they've come up through the ranks really, really well. So he has experience despite his really young age, and you don't get jobs at those kind of places unless you are good, unless you're Vincent Company though, who got relegated and was rewarded with the Bayern Munich job. But yeah, I feel two separate incidents there. But but yeah, hopefully that he can use his experience in a tough situation at Sheffield Wednesday. Obviously, completely different, but he's coming into a tough situation at Rangers, and hopefully he can turn it around.
Yeah, definitely. And a point that I forgot to make on the Hearts game earlier that I'll just make before we move on to the other three games, unless you've got any final points on Rangers, was that I don't think we're going to. I think if Hearts can't win the league this season, then I don't see a better chance for any team outside of Celtic and Rangers. And you think that would be fair to say?
Yeah, because Celtic and Rangers won't be the way they are this season, next season.
Yeah,
I can say that with confidence. I can almost guarantee it. Um,
yeah,
Celtic will have a new manager in. It's looking like they will, probably be bringing different players in. And despite all the criticism the board gets, they are extremely domestically successful. They know how to do it in that arena. So yeah, I don't see and Rangers, despite their lack of success over the past few years, they will definitely not be as bad as they've been. I can say that with confidence.
yeah. I would agree with you. And moving on to the other three games on Saturday, 3 o'clock kickoffs. We'll start at Easter Road with the third place team at the moment. Third place seems to be changing every week at this rate, but Hibs are in that position at the moment. They would have wanted to be there come this point at the start of the season, but obviously the fact that their rivals have got double their points and sit 11 points ahead isn't going to leave them happy, especially with how many points Hibs have dropped and needless points as well. The fans will feel, but a really good win against Livingston 4-0, run out comfortable winners,
Yeah.
and a big win because I think they needed that, and I think was it Raphael Salinger, the goalkeeper, maybe that was saying that they were going to Loch Lomond and going on walks. Sort of another example of team bonding exercises, I think it was.
What the heck?
Um,
What's been going
but
on in the Scottish Premiership this season? Is the Loch Lomond League? Is that, is that has that
there
been a
must be something in
strategy?
the water.
Has that been a strategy for teams for years, and nobody's ever like clucked on it until Rangers did it, and now, oh no, the game plan's out. We can't be going to Loch Lomond anymore. No, but it was really important that Hibs got the win because they were in a bit of a rut. They were in a bit of a really sticky situation the way they were going, and this is massive, a catalyst for them perhaps to get back to their best, because we've all been speaking about it for a while. We know this Hibs team are capable of more, and old man Junior Hoylett coming off the bench to make an impact as well, and compound the misery of Livingston, who are starting to slip further and further away. They're starting to look like maybe they could be relegation favourites. I mean, you've spoke about how you think Dundee are still there, but Livingston for me recently have dropped off. Maybe that Rangers result has kind of curtailed their season a little bit. So yeah, but massive for Hibs, really poor for Livingston, and obviously David Martindale, if he hears me saying how bad they've been, he might get really upset because he doesn't want to hear content creators talking about his team anymore, about what football managers should do. But David, no disrespect, I love you, and I've met you a couple of times, but your team aren't doing very well this season.
No, and that's certainly fair to say. That's the facts. That's not opinion based. No wins in Livingston's last nine. You'll have to go back to that win against Falkirk right at the start of the season. They of course lost to Dundee on that run 3-2 at Dens Park. So yeah, do you definitely make a fair point? They sit down rock bottom at the moment after Aberdeen's win, which we'll get on to. But yeah, it is a little bit concerning for Livingston at the moment. And obviously, I think financially they're possibly the weakest team in the league, as David Martindale likes to go on about, and fair enough, he does, because it's the facts. But yeah, I think I would be concerned because this is a Hibs team that weren't the highest on confidence, especially after losing to Hearts and Rangers in a run, which really are two teams that they won't accept losing to in any scenario, especially when Hearts are on their great run, and they would have wanted to be the ones to stop that. And of course, Rangers were struggling to get any wins under Russell Martin. So yeah, but Hibs were brilliant. Thibaut Clegy got the start and got a really nice goal. He done really well and finished well in opening 10 minutes. That obviously settled the nerves of Easter Road, and they kicked on from there. Jamie McGrath converted a second half penalty, and then Junior Hoylett, as you mentioned, came off the bench and got a double in the final 10 minutes or so. So massive win for Hibs. They're into third. They want to stay there. They want to try and close the gap to their Edinburgh counterparts. Although that, as we've mentioned, that's going to be pretty difficult with how consistent and strong Hearts look. Although, do you think Hibs will be happy with third at the moment, and if they can really solidify themselves there? Because ultimately, at the start of the season, the talk was between Hearts, Aberdeen, and Hibs for third. But do you think Hibs will be a little bit frustrated now because Hearts are looking like they're maybe going to challenge for a title?
I don't know because the fans might be, but I feel like Hibs just need to focus on Hibs, and
Yeah,
um, it doesn't as much as the bragging rights in the city. If it does come to the end of the season, it will be difficult for the Hibs sort of supporters to take that. They're in different scenarios right now. They very clearly, I think Hearts are in a much better position. Not just talking about the league table because that's obvious, but I feel like that they're in a much better position just in terms of a club and their transfer strategy and the feeling around it right now. And the Hibs just need to get back to winning ways and see what happens. The players just need to focus. I don't think the team themselves will be looking over and going, "Oh no." The supporters might do that. Supporters might speculate, and I'd imagine at work and school and stuff, they'll be getting it tight off their Hearts supporting mates. But right now, I think just Hibs need to focus on Hibs.
yeah, exactly that. I completely agree. And we've seen stranger things happen. So you never know. Hibs could still finish above Hearts in this Scottish Premiership table. We've still got so long to go. But yeah, Hibs a massive win, and they'll be hoping to kick on. Now they've got a massive game next week as well at Pittodrie, which will be a really interesting game. And that seems like a perfect time to move on to the Dons. Another excellent result. Of course, they lifted that weight off their shoulders with the big win against Dundee before the international break, the 4-0 win, and now they take a massive 3 points away from St Mirren Park in Paisley with a late goal from Marko Lazitic, and an excellent one at that. If you've seen the goal,
Dimitar Berbatov-esque, I said in the TikTok.
yeah, it was that an excellent turn and a really nice finish from a tight angle right at the end. Takes his top off, gets a yellow card. He won't care. Aberdeen, in all
That was
fairness,
brilliant, by the way. He was running and he takes, how some players like take it off and maybe they're like, they throw it into the crowd or they like hold their name up like Trapanovsky did. He just takes it off and flags it out. He doesn't care where it's going. He's just loving the celebration and he jumps into the crowd and it's you can see the emotion and the heat of the moment and it was absolutely fantastic. You'll have scenes like that in Aberdeen with massive back-to-back wins. Now they've sort of reversed their fortunes. They weren't scoring and they were losing in nearly every game, and now they're not conceding and they're winning. They've won back-to-back games now in a really tough place that they've not won for a while. I was in the Scottish Football Zone on Friday talking about it, and I think they had won at St Mirren Park since, or the Smythe Stadium since 2018 or something mental like that. It was a while. It was a while since they'd won, and a really important win and great for Aberdeen and hopefully for the supporters and the team. They'll start seeing more results, and I think we're starting to see the true quality of this squad and the players, and that they can show up like your Alshish's, like your Jasper Carlsons, like your Marko Lazitic's, because you don't get signed for AC Milan if you're a mug. So yeah, we will. I think we're going to see more of Aberdeen. As for St Mirren, I was a little bit concerned about them. I spoke to Ryan. He said he's not too concerned, but their sort of poor run is continuing, and we all have praised Stephen Robinson, and rightly so, but they seem to be going into a little bit of a lull.
Yeah, quite possibly, and I think you were right with your facts. I think it was 2018 the last time Aberdeen won there in the league. 2020 they won in the Scottish Cup, but in the league it was 2018. Yeah, so massive win for Aberdeen and for St Mirren. Yeah, you're completely right to say a difficult run they've been on. Obviously, they were on the high of the three wins and the bounce at Falkirk, at Kelly in the League Cup, and then at home to Dundee. But they lose to Kelly at Rugby Park pretty with a whimper, really. And then they lose to Aberdeen at home, despite having their midfield three back, because I believe against Kilmarnock they were missing two of that midfield three. I think it was um, yeah, they were missing Keanu Bacchus and Mark O'Hara, but both of them were back in, so they had their strongest midfield, and they could have very easily taken a point from this game. But looking at the second half stats, especially and watching the highlights, Aberdeen really should have scored before they did. They had some massive chances but couldn't find the net. Marko Lazovic obviously did, as we mentioned, and yeah, Jaden Richardson got a red card against his old club in the final 10 minutes. Wee bit of handbags. He does sort of kick out, so I can see why that was given. He gave the referee a decision to make ultimately that he didn't need to do, and he'll feel like, and I think Stephen Robinson will probably make it known that he possibly cost his team a decent point. So Mirren's still in a good place to compete for top six. That's ultimately where they'll be aiming for this season, as they have the last three seasons. But yeah, a massive win for Aberdeen. They're now on 7 points. They move off the bottom for the first time this season, I believe. And yeah, they're only 4 points off third. And I think Aberdeen have got one of the strongest squads in the league with some of the players you mentioned. And yeah, I can see Aberdeen really causing some teams some problems, although they still do seem to be struggling in front of goal a little bit because they should have scored before they did. And if
Yeah,
it wasn't for
yeah, relying on a bit of it late individual brilliance. Maybe if you want to be picky and sort of pick holes in the victory and be super analytical, you could say that definitely. Although I'm sure the Aberdeen fans aren't really caring, but that's not our job to do that. It's our job to look at every sort of possible outcome and see what could happen. And I would agree. Maybe they are still struggling slightly in front of goal. Although positive you could take is they seem to have shored up at the back, and you can build from that. And they did get the late goal, and the next game they might score more or score earlier, and you're not relying on a guy to pull a rabbit out of his hat. Probably score one of the best goals of his entire career. But yeah, I'd agree with that, Ethan.
Yeah, and just a final point on this was that St Mirren did actually have the ball in the net. Alex Gogic with a header, but it was ruled out for a foul on Dimitar Mitov, I believe. The camera angle that the VAR was showing wasn't really good. It was quite a distant angle, so couldn't really make a great analysis of it. But yeah, goalkeepers are always a protected species, as we know. So Aberdeen possibly getting away with one there, but I think based off the balance of play and the chances created, Aberdeen possibly deserved to take all 3 points. Moving on to the final game of the weekend, and this is one that certainly caught me by surprise. The full time score at Fir Park.
Former Aberdeen player Jaden Richardson sent off.
Yeah, no, I said that. I said that.
I must have
Yeah,
so
yeah, I think you did. I think you did. I discussed that. It was a bit of handbags, and he kicked out. He gave the referee a decision to make. But yeah,
great,
um,
great podcast in there. I always listen to Ethan when he's speaking.
yeah, you do. Fir Park, Motherwell 1, Falkirk 2. An excellent result for John McGlynn's team. One I think they really needed. For Motherwell, I couldn't really see that one coming off the back of a really good performance at Celtic Park.
Or are you waiting on me to talk? I thought you were still
Yeah,
talking.
No, no, I know. I was just, well,
Uh,
I was just saying if you agreed with me that you didn't really see this one coming. I didn't see this
no,
one
no,
coming at
I
all.
didn't see it coming. Sorry. See the way the inflection in your voice was that this last 5 minutes is not going to reflect well on me. But see
No, no, that was my fault. That was my fault. Just keep going.
the inflection on your voice. It just made it made it seem like you were gonna keep talking. But no, I didn't see it coming. Although I think I'm starting to see a pattern with Motherwell. They play really well, but they can't get a result, and that will become a problem. We've been really high on Motherwell this season. We've been loving the stuff they play, but if you can't really get results at the end of the day, what would you rather have? Jens Bertolaescu going out and playing some beautiful football, or would you rather have, I don't know, like, who would you rather have Stuart Kettlewell back in the door, or would you rather have Stephen Robinson from many moons ago? It doesn't matter if you're playing nice stuff as long as you don't get, if you're not getting results.
No, exactly that. And yeah, I haven't seen much on how Motherwell played. It looked like, looking at the stats, Motherwell dominating possession as you would expect, although Falkirk do like to play possession-based football as well when they can. Didn't look like there was much between the two teams, but Falkirk get a massive win that, as I said, they really needed because hadn't won in how many? 4 games. Their only win in the last eight was at Pataudry, I believe. So, yeah, a win that they really needed, and it's a massive one to go to Motherwell, who have played really well. Their only loss this season was at Celtic Park, and they looked like they were going to go off to another get another win under their belt. Of course, after they got those two against Aberdeen, Tawanda Maswanise opened the scoring in the 22nd minute with a nice finish, and then in the second half, Falkirk came back into the game. Calvin Miller got the equaliser before Scott Arfield came off the bench to get a massive, massive goal for Falkirk and the Bairns. So, yeah, I think this could be. I think this could really sort of set both these teams up for the next few games because Motherwell have came off the back of their first two defeats of the season. I think they'll go into a difficult period, whereas Falkirk, their first big win in a while. So they'll be really confident going into the next few
They should
games.
they
The
should
interesting,
they should have beat Rangers as well, so they could take real
yeah,
positive from that performance and the fact they've gone on to win a game.
yeah, exactly that. And I just noticed that Motherwell's team there, they made a lot of changes. Apostolos Stamatolopoulos started on the bench, showed the Reagan Charles Cook, and Elijah Just was back in after spending just over a month out injured. He looked really promising when he started the season. I don't think he was great at the weekend in his first game back. And Callum Hendry started up top. So, yeah, really interesting. I really didn't see this coming, but lots of credit goes to John McGlynn and his players. And yeah, they'll take massive confidence into the next game when they face Dundee at home, which could be a real sort of relegation favourite 6 pointer, the newly promoted team, the team a lot of people tipped. So,
What did
uh,
Dundee need to do? They've drawn with Rangers at Ibrox and they've beat Celtic, and you've still got them as relegation candidates.
well, who do you have as relegation candidates then?
Livingston and Falkirk.
Okay. I still think I don't know. Dundee were brilliant yesterday, but ultimately, one game and one performance doesn't make a season. I just think I've seen enough from Dundee
Well, they've got
to not
nine
be
points. They've
convinced
got the
yet.
same as St Mirren. They've got the same as Rangers. They've got the same as they're ahead of Motherwell, and you'd still take Motherwell over Dundee as well. Dundee actually beat Celtic, which Motherwell didn't, despite all the praise.
Yeah, it's a good point. No, I don't know. I'm just not fully convinced by Dundee yet. I don't know. I don't know. I think I'm just trying to stick to my guns from my predictions early in the season.
You just don't like
But
Memphis.
no, I do. I do. I think he's done a very good job. He's done better because I don't think that. Dundee have got an excellent squad by any means. They've got a really young squad with a lot of players, a lot of talent like Cameron Congreve, and they've got a lot of players we don't really know about. But he seems to be gelling it together well, and if he can sort of get them to perform like they did at the weekend on a consistent basis, then there's no reason why they can't stay up. I just think it's still a very much an uphill task for them. And if I was looking at three teams to associate with the relegation places, it would still be Falkirk, Livingston, and Dundee. Unfortunately for them, although they did, two of them did pick up very good results at the weekend. Although I think Livingston is favourites at the moment. It's possibly fair with how their recent runs went and how they performed at the weekend. But yeah, Motherwell, another one. Crazy to think that they've got less points than Dundee, but they have, and ultimately it's a points game. It's a results business, as we keep going on about. But I do think Motherwell will be good. I think James Berfalasco will get them winning games, although it'll be difficult to pick themselves up from the weekend. And Falkirk will be on the high of two really positive results back to back.
Okay.
All for this weekend's Scottish Premiership action. Thank you very much again for listening. If you are watching, if you're watching on the Dugout YouTube channel, then you'll see all the links to our other socials, including the Spotify after this is done. If you're listening on the Spotify, then please go and check us out on the YouTube at the Dugout, the Twitter or X at the Dugout 2024, and the TikTok at the Dugout 1. Thanks again, and goodbye.